All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Sarah. I'm a team member here at Nerve Renew, and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Don Kennedy. I'll let him introduce himself in just a moment. Tonight's topic is a true question and answer. We love doing these ones because it gets you guys some more information, really specifically about what you're looking for. So we're going to dive into the questions submitted by the community and the customers here in just a minute. One quick heads up, we do have a surprise for you. I was able to get you guys early access to a coupon code that is going live this weekend, but for our listeners tonight, you get access to it tonight. So I'll be sharing a little bit more about that at the end of the call, so stick around for that. Tonight, we're excited to go through some of this stuff. I know we get questioned so much, so it's nice to be able to really dive into some of these more specifics that we maybe just don't get to address all of the time. So we did get a lot of questions that came through that was more kind of general nerve health related, but way more that came through specifically asking about Nerve Renew, about the different products that we have, about dosages, effectiveness, how they can implement it, all sorts of things really specific to Nerve Renew. So we want to be sure that we kind of address both fronts of that. So we're going to start with the more general nerve health questions, kind of answer some of those that came through, and then we're going to get into the more specific Nerve Renew questions that came through. So with that, Dr. Kenny, would you mind just doing a quick introduction of who you are and how you got to be working with us?
Yep, I don't mind doing a quick introduction anytime. So my name is Dr. Kennedy. I'm Dr. Don Kennedy. I'm a board certified family doc with a lot of interest, and that includes regenerative medicine. I've been in family practice now and a lot of geriatrics for over 40 years. So I've been around and I still get surprised every day. So my goal as the medical advisor with the company is to educate. And I teach a lot. I teach at the university and I do a lot of other things. And so my goal is to be kind of that voice of common sense education as part of this, because there's so much, how can I say, stuff and information out there that sometimes, and I know some of you folks have been on before, but some haven't, and some don't understand the basics of neuropathy and what this is about. But my job is to kind of have a little bit of fun, not make this boring, hopefully, and then have you go away with a sense of some good information that you can use, and not just the same information over and over again, because the idea is to get you motivated to do something or teach you something that you can use, not just give you a bunch of blah and then you go back to the way everything was being done. The idea is to kind of give you, at least pick up something to help you get along your way. So it's just a new path, and that's me. I'm Dr. Don Kennedy.
Well, thank you. We're just so appreciative of to have you as a resource for us. You know, we've been doing this for 11 years now. You've been doing it for about 4 times that. So we are so grateful to be able to lean on you for that experience and expertise that we just don't have. And it's really helped guide us in the best ways to support our customers. So we love learning from you too. So if you guys that are listening and tuning in tonight, if you haven't checked out one of our Facebook Lives before, we do these on occasion, and it's usually sharing a resource, a topic, and then also some of these question and answer based ones. So it is truly that. These are to help educate, give you guys education, resources to help you in your journey, and we hope that you just walk away with some of those tidbits of how things you can implement and how you can make your journey a little bit better. So feel free, as you're watching this, if you have questions that come up, go ahead and drop them in that comment box. We did have a lot that came through the last couple of weeks when we were asking for questions. So we'll be going through those that were submitted before the call first. If we have time, we'd love to get to those that are submitted live on the call as well. So feel free to drop those into that comment box. And we'll get to what we can. And if we don't get to your question, rest assured our team will. So we have a fantastic group of customer service representatives that they monitor all of these, all of the questions and comments that come through. So if Don and I aren't able to answer them firsthand tonight, your question will get answered. So without further ado, Dr. K, are you ready to get ready? Are you ready to get ready? Are you ready to go?
Let's be really colorful today. How's that?
Oh goodness, I feel like we always are. So you guys, we try to make these fun and a little bit entertaining because it is some pretty detailed information and science that we get into. So we do try to keep it a little bit lively as well. So let's dive into some of those more nerve health related questions that we received from our community and from our customers. As we get into that, I know Dr. Kennedy, you like to kind of set some foundations for what people can expect what people can kind of learn from as we're going through. So set that foundation for just reviewing nerve health in general. So let's go ahead and do that kind of quick review first, have that basis of understanding, and then we'll get into some of these questions.
Yeah, that's great because I try to do this every time we have these lives because there are people who are just learning about neuropathy, about the process. So here is just the simple skeleton basics that if you know what I'm about to say, then you could look at the neuropathy and the process um, uh, just as a great builder of information. If you know what I'm about to say and you understand it, then it's never simple, but this is pretty simple. So let's talk about number one, what is neuropathy? And and you think, well, what it is very simply disease of the nerves. Okay, what's the big deal about the disease of the nerves? What do they do? Well, nerves give information from outside to your brain. Very simple. You step on a nail, there's pain, the pain goes up, the brain interprets it as pain and tells you to move your foot. It's an information, it's a signal. That's all it is. But when those signals get a little messed up, imagine stepping on a nail and the nerve not acting right. The brain doesn't get any new information. You just keep stepping on the nail. And so nothing gets, quote, interpreted. So the first point is that's what neurons and nerves do. They send information from one point to your brain so you can figure out what the heck to do about it. Secondly, there are there's a structure to all nerves. All nerves. There is what I call the hot dog. I know you've heard this before, some of you, but it's like, or an electrical wire. It's like there is an electrical wire called the axon going through a fatty sheath called the myelin sheath, just like an electrical cord. I like the hot dog analogy because there's a bunch of little hot dogs hooked to each other. But their job, the axon inside, transmits the signals from the feet, the hands, or whatever to the brain, just like a wire. The surrounding myelin sheath is what protects that axon so that if anything either causes damage to that outside sheath or causes damage to that axon, the information getting from when you stepped on the nail to your brain is not right. It's not interpreted right, or if there's numbness or some other symptom, then there is absolutely no reaction. So remember, you got this hot dog bun sheath around a nerve that sends the signals to the brain for interpretation. Mm-hmm. All right. And the last point is there are multiple causes of this. Some we don't know about, but anything that affects that myelin sheath, that axon, will give the symptoms of neuropathy. So if you've got that down, then we can talk about everything else and you can build from what you read. So is that okay? How's that?
Yeah, I appreciate having that. Just we're working from the same knowledge base, right? Because that really does inform a lot of the answers tonight. Kind of if they have the understanding of these are those main components. So that sounds good. You guys, we'll keep an eye on those questions that come through. Thank you, Don, for setting the stage for us there. Let's get into the first question. I went ahead, because we had this one a lot, I went ahead and kind of summarized. We had several different variations of the question, can nerves regenerate? Possibly our most frequently asked question. So, Don, let's talk about answering this question. Can nerves regenerate?
Yep. And here's that. It goes back to the very basics I just said. Imagine there's a damaged nerve or a nerve that's not functioning well. And the question is, what about regeneration? Well, regenerative medicine is a big deal right now. And I've done a lot of studies for this, and it's about using your own body's forces to help improve symptoms, to help the nerve regenerate back to its original function? So the answer is yes, they do. Yes, it's a great new frontier out there. And I think part of this question is, are there studies out there? There are thousands of studies that show that nerves can regenerate. And specifically, we talk about components of, even with the Nerve Renew, there are there are a lot of different parts that help that. But the study specifically about this was about, like, for instance, three things: R alpha lipoic acid. And I swear I am not going to give you a bunch of stuff or words that aren't going to make any sense. I just want these to be in your brain. So R alpha lipoic acid, vitamin B1, which you know is, but a special type called benfotiamine, and then vitamin B12, which is a special type called methylcobalamin. What's the big deal about these? Well, nerves regenerate because uh, certain factors get to the nerves and put out fires. For instance, R alpha lipoic acid is like a fire hose to a thing called a free radical. If nerves are on fire, you need a fire hose to put them out. And that's what R alpha lipoic acid does. For instance, if your sugars are too high, it comes in, it actually releases these fires and creates the fires, and then comes R alpha lipoic acid and puts them out. That creates an environment where the nerves can regenerate and get their and start sending the correct signals again. And then the benfotiamine. Well, that was interesting because the benfotiamine has shown that axon, those little axons in there, within 6 months of taking that, had increased their normal activity by almost 100%. So that matters. And then the other one, the vitamin B12, it rejuvenates the actual neuron. So you're talking about kind of natural processes, and you're talking about things you can take that helps your body heal itself.
Yeah.
And the big deal is getting these components to the nerves and creating an environment around them, a healing environment, not the one that was on fire. So
Right.
you can picture that, putting out the fires, and that yes, they can regenerate, and it takes a while, but they can create new nerves, and they can also regenerate the old ones.
Yeah. It's so fascinating to me. And I think one of the biggest things that really resonated with me when I was first learning this from you is that there are those different types. There's different types of B1, different types of B12, and it's not all of this. They're all the same. So that's such a key component to keep in mind, and a really good learning tool, I think, too. So thank you for breaking that down. That is a condensed version of that answer. I know there are, as you said, so many studies specifically on ingredients that really do support overall nerve health and that regeneration that can happen over time. So that's a summarized version, but we do have a lot to get through. So thank you for keeping that succinct. In general, the answer is yes, it can happen.
And the funny part of that is that, of all the things I just said, and considering the weather discussion that you and I both had just before we came on, it's like creating an environment that was a snowstorm or a big fire, and creating an environment of just wonderful sunshine and warmth and health. If you get that environment right around those nerves, everything gets better. So that's my metaphor.
So true. So true. And it really, those are the things that those that you mentioned. Those are the components that specifically will be in charge, I guess, of that regeneration. But to expand on that environment factor, you can't just have that, right? There's so many other things that could be inhibiting those things from working and doing what they're able to. So that kind of leads us into the next question. Again, I summarized this one because we got several variations of the same question. And it is, people want to know, what are the biggest things that I can do right away to start that healing process? So break that down a little bit for us.
Well, and I know we have a questionnaire that folks can do, and maybe you can speak to that. But if you, and sometimes you can't know this,
Mhm.
If you know, this is kind of a silly statement, but if you know the cause, then stop doing that. Okay, number one.
So
But if
true.
it's genetic, you can't help. If it's
Yep.
in the aging process, you can't help. But in the big picture, uh, the there is a great impact on what you actually do, and then people don't know what to do. There's so much information out there, they don't know where to start or what to do when somebody, when they wake up for the first time in the middle of the night and say, well, is there a bug on my leg? Well, no. So
Yeah.
in the big picture, it's changing lifestyle. As a matter of fact, that's a new certification I'm doing right now called lifestyle medicine. And I,
Mhm.
I love that because of what it is. It's getting folks to look at their lifestyle and realize, oh, the old lifestyle may not work. And
Mhm.
so the first thing I say in globally, it's getting up, getting the right diet, doing the exercise, taking the supplements. And there's things out there you can do. Nerves love massage, feet, legs massage. They love to be touched, even though sometimes it's tender. You get that lymph flow going, you get the oxygen in there, you get the blood flow back. Um, there's red light therapy now. You can use that to stimulate the capillaries on the skin and open them up. And remember, nerves are the nerves that have um, the most symptoms are the ones just under the skin, and they're not protected by that myelin sheath. They're just bare nerves. So imagine doing anything to affect that and also get the blood flow, because that's a big part of that. So in the general statement, taking a look at your lifestyle, diet, exercise, supplementation is the first big step. Stepping back and saying, okay, I've been doing this. I'm not going to do that anymore. And then I'm going to learn something that's going to help me. And not just learn, but then you're going to do something. It's an actual action. Okay. Um, did you want me to talk about the foods? The question on the foods, I know there's one in there.
Yes, I have that one next on the list. To kind of summarize a little bit of what you mentioned, thank you for kind of diving into those things. I mean, that's a great bullet point list. I think one of the things I've learned the most from you is that nerve, uh, unhealthy nerves and the things that lead to the discomfort and the damage it can be really diverse. So it is not a one size fits all when it comes to a treatment plan. You've talked a lot before about how there is some trial and error because it just varies so much from person to person and circumstance. So not being afraid to try stuff, try different things. You know, you mentioned a few different things, the red light therapy and whatnot. Um, so those are all things that people can try and really explore. Caveat to that is that you have to give it time to work, right? It always takes a little bit of time for those things to have the impact that they can. Um, but then, yeah, diet and exercise is hands down the biggest thing that someone can do to see that change right away. And so let's get into that. We get a lot of diet questions. We actually have, thanks to you, we've created a free diet ebook. So it's a full diet guide of things that kind of the most triggering foods and what to eat instead. So we can absolutely share that after this call as well. So the questions that came through was from Elizabeth, and she asked, "What food should I avoid, and what are the foods that I should eat to really help with my nerve health?" So let's dive into that a little bit.
Well, I know you want to hear a story.
Always.
Okay. So years ago, in my practice, I actually had a program to help. It's a weight loss diet type program. And I ran that program for folks not only in the practice, but in the community. And one of the challenges I had, are you ready for this? Was called the Black Bag Run. Do you know what
Okay.
that is? It was, and we did it. Everyone in the group was challenged to get a black trash bag and go through their cabinets and refrigerator and throw everything that they weren't supposed to eat and wasn't good for them into the black trash bag. And then they would do it the day before the next meeting, which was weekly for 6 weeks, and they would bring the bag with them.
Ooh.
Now, I will tell you, some people didn't quite understand because one lady said this. Are you ready?
Uh-oh.
If I do that, what will my kids eat?
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll just think about
Oh.
it for a second.
Okay.
So when I start addressing this, oh my gosh, everybody gets uh, so befuddled about diets, and there's so much in the foods. And so in the global thought process,
Mhm.
look at what you do. Look at what you do every day and what you've done in the past, because most people do the same thing over and over again. They like the same foods over and over again. And a lot of times those foods are not, and we're specifically talking about diet, those foods are not the correct the ones you should be taking. So when you say, well, what food should you avoid? Well, look, um, I I I I got to call a big three. Number one, sugars. Anything with sugar. Number two, anything with alcohol. I know that's crazy, but even if there's a neuropathy and there's symptoms, alcohol is a big problem, even a little bit. And then fats. Yes, that glob of butter matters, and you can replace that with olive. It's
Right.
simple little things, and you can imagine that. I know everybody there could pick three things right now that they think, "Oh, I probably shouldn't do that. I probably don't." Artificial sweeteners, you know,
Mm.
no, no, no. Salt, gluten, no, no, no. But if you can pick one or two things and begin with just one or two and say, "Oh,"
Yeah.
then most of the time, that time, it's 70% of the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So what
Yeah.
do you do? Well, you say, "All right, I see the butter sitting on the counter, that giant
Mhm.
blob of what I call fire, waiting, just waiting." And I say, well, what am I going to replace it with? Well, obviously, I just said olive oil, but what about salads and nuts and I know people like ice cream and sugar and the rest of that, but I'll tell you what, once people start eating nuts and some good fruits and vegetables and the healthy oil bases, then
Mm.
everything they they learn that it's okay. But I promise you, the biggest failures in that are people who try to change 25,000 things all at once. And I guarantee a week later, the ice cream is back in the fridge. So pick
Yeah.
one. And that's a challenge maybe tonight. Just pick one and say,
Yeah.
okay, let me learn to how to make this change. And,
Yeah.
and then maybe in 2 weeks, pick another one. But
Mhm.
it will be, I will guarantee you, there's three or four things that people ingest that create the inflammation and the fires around the nerves.
Mhm.
Guaranteed. Not only to mention clogging the arteries. So there's my answer. How's that one?
Yeah. No, it's so true. That's such a good reminder to take it in bite-sized pieces, literally, right? Just
That was funny.
one
Yeah.
little change, one little thing, let that become a habit instead of trying to overhaul everything. It just, for most people, that doesn't work. That doesn't lead to lasting change. It leads to temporary change.
And what
Um,
you're saying is right. What you're saying is the habit of doing one little thing
mhm,
is a critical part because it's not doing it, it's learning to do it that matters.
right, right. So true. One thing too, I've learned a lot just on my own researching anti-inflammatory diets. That's if people are wanting to dive into this a little bit more. He just gave you a few jumping off points. That's a big one because the inflammation is huge when it comes to the impact on nerves. So that might give you, that's an easy thing to maybe search for is anti-inflammatory recipes and ingredients and swaps. Just like you use the butter and olive oil example, you could start Googling some of those things and just kind of gaining a little bit more knowledge on what is really inflammatory. Gluten can be a huge one for people. So lots of good takeaways on that one. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, because
All
for
right.
some people, there won't be much left in the cabinet after the black bag thing. Okay, they'll look for good things to replace them. So there.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we'll keep moving because we have quite a few more to get through. So, this is a question that came through from Bev. She is curious to know about neurofeedback. So, is neurofeedback something that can help with nerve discomfort and the nerve symptoms. It's been suggested to her to give it a try. Her aim is to really try and get off all of the medication that she's been on. So she wants to see if just your opinion on what this might be and how it could possibly help her.
Well, and then if you ask 1,000 people right now, what is neurofeedback? One or two of them would really understand. And then the people who know about neurofeedback would say, we don't really know what it does, because they don't. There is, of course, my opinion, which matters on this one, because I think it's important to understand how nerves work.
Mhm.
Neurofeedback, imagine, is retraining, is taking information. Actually, they hook up electrodes to your brain, and you're watching a scope, and you're watching what your brain waves do, and then they give you different things to do, and you can watch what your brain waves. For instance, just deep breathing, relaxing, doing something like um, just being calm, thinking of other things, and you can learn how to change the response of your brain. Now, looking at how this is stated, when you look at the chemistry of nerves and how nerves work, nerves are always replacing themselves. They're always learning. If anybody out there thinks that after age 50, and I'm over 50, nerves can't regenerate and nerves in the brain aren't changing, that is just false. It's every day, every second, every millisecond, the nerves are changing in response to the environment that is fed to them. So
Okay.
you can see binaural feedback is a training of the nerves so that you react differently. The
Hmm.
big deal is that the studies show that there is a big there is a large effectiveness when you learn to do certain things, especially dealing with discomfort, other symptoms. And I'm talking about headaches, I'm talking about anything that has to do with discomfort. And
Yeah.
so the neurofeedback's been very, very successful. But what I kind of discovered in this was the point they made in the study was that it's not just one little neurofeedback. It's about, you see big differences when you go through about 30 of the sessions, sometimes up to 40 or 50 of the sessions. But what I want you to understand is that we're dealing about the nerves in the brain. And the
Okay.
nerves in the brain, when they get that feedback, and I'll give you an example, they form new pathways. And in new pathways, they learn how to respond rather than feeling the interpretation of the pain, feeling discomfort, feeling anything like that. The headache that some folks have, and that's a big deal with the biofeedback, is the nerves learn to ignore that, and people
Hmm.
do. And so when you talk about, well, what the heck can I do for that? Do I have to go down and put a bunch of electrodes on my brain? Some people might, and some people will. But also remember that there's a lot of studies out there that show this: simple things like this, listening to music therapy in a quiet room, teaches you to teaches your nerves to ignore any of the symptoms. And you can do that in a quiet time, and at least for a while, things get better. Also, things like yoga. Um, the immediate feedback from these are really, really important because um, they're things you can do at home or with a group. Meditation has been great with in terms of decreasing symptomatology from just about everything because you're retraining the nerves. And the big point here is, if you look at the literature, uh, it's nobody knows exactly why this is happening, but we know that if you do some things, things get better and your life gets better, which is what this whole thing is about.
Yeah.
Answer to neurofeedback: yes, it works. Yes, there are ways you can do it, simple ways, and then there's the actual medical ways. So you can go to
Yeah.
hospitals, you can go to neurofeedback specialists.
Yeah. It's so fascinating. Uh, just how it all is so interconnected, and something like that could help nerves. That's really fascinating. So, thank you for giving your insights on that. It sounds like it's definitely something that if somebody wants to explore implementing that as part of their treatment plan, along with all the things we mentioned before: diet, exercise, supplementation, etc. Sounds like it could be something beneficial.
Yeah,
So,
and I've said this, but one of my favorite is that yoga mindset. Just doing something simple like that. If folks out there, the best thing is to take that quiet time and stretch those muscles and do that, get the blood flow going. At the same time, you get neurofeedback from that. So it's kind of a triple whammy there.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, very cool. Let's dive into our second portion here. So those were the majority of the questions that came through, kind of more nerve health related. Now I want to get into some that specifically people were asking about Nerve Renew and the Nerve Renew product. So first question coming through from TJ. He's asking, okay, I've been taking Nerve Renew for about a year. Really thankful. The nighttime discomfort that he was feeling in his feet has almost disappeared completely, but the numbness has continued. He started adding in Optimizer as well as the Nerve Renew to the regimen, but hasn't seen improvement yet. Am I as healed as I can be, or can I expect more feeling to return? So, with that, what do you say, Dr. Kennedy?
Well, and I'm pretty straightforward with people. I'm being, like I said, I do this over 40 years.
Yep.
Sometimes you can't get a clear answer on something. And this is not going to be a clear answer because you don't know where it's going. There's two parts to this. And the two questions are, is in this situation, is this as good as it's going to get, or is it going to get better? And there's a different way of looking at this. It's as good as it's going to get, maybe, or it would have been worse if you hadn't done what you had done in terms of taking this supplement. In other words, where would it have been had you not taken action and the other things which I've talked about? Where would that have been? And then how long does it really take for things to happen? Well, I always like a 6-month window, but there are studies that show years. But there are also studies that show folks who have been on these types of supplementation. They decide, well, it's not going to get any better, and I'll just kind of stop this. And then within 3 weeks, the symptoms just jump back on them. So something's happening. There's sometimes you can't put out all the fires, or sometimes there is a nerve damage that's just not going to fix. And we all know this. And if anybody else there tells us doctors that we can heal everybody, and I'd like to know who that is, because we can't. The idea is to, and honestly, how I feel, we're trying to give you a better life. We're wanting to squeeze everything you count out of the years that we have. And so if nerve dysfunction is a part of this life and it's obstructing you, then there's no reason quitting. There's no reason just coming to finality on this. I think that the answer to this is it probably will get better over time. Some of the symptoms listed may not change, but there's action being taken and it is effective.
Yeah. It's one of those, it is hard. And I think part of it is that there, like we mentioned before, so much diversity in the way that the symptoms and the damage shows up, right? I think it can vary so much about how well one treatment plan is going to work versus another. I know you've spoken about when it's numbness usually speaks to there's even more harm that's happened to the myelin sheath. So that is going to take the longest to recover. And so it is a matter of time. It is a matter of just continuing. Maybe also looking at what outside of supplementation are you doing, right? It can't just be we're taking a supplement, but then we're also eating fast food every night and never exercising. The results aren't going to happen, right? You're just kind of digging.
It's just a long dance.
Right.
Trying different things, not trying everything, trying one little thing at a time for a long period of time and see what the response is. And so not getting befuddled by too many things at once. But for instance, this person, I think it was TJ, is having success more success than some people who haven't tried anything. But there's more things to try, from massage to the lights to the rest of this. So the answer is, at least my hope for this patient is that everything will gradually get better. But the big point is things won't get worse, and you'll learn to kind of adapt and do some of the other things we talked about and get on with your life.
Yeah, very, very true. Okay, let's take our next question from Peggy. She's asking, I currently take a prescription for my nerve symptoms. Can Nerve Renew prevent it from worsening, or at least help the symptoms that I currently experience?
Well, let's go back to let's go back to the first thing I talked about. Remember that there's two parts to this. There is discomfort, which is the signals are sent to the brain, and the brain just interprets this.
Right.
And so if there's no signals coming to the brain will say, well, numbness or nothing's going on. But in this case, prescription medications are not healing or not affecting the regeneration of nerves. They are causing a new interpretation of the brain by blocking those signals. In other words, those neurons that are trying to fuddle around in the brain and get better are being somewhat suppressed by the chemicals in the prescriptions, and that's all they do. But there is a good news to this, and let me tell you, I've prescribed medications, many times and had success. But the good news is this: if there is a prescription medication that seems to be helping relieve symptoms, so that you can get on with your life and and perform a lot better, then it allows you to do the things we were already talking about. And sometimes folks are having so many symptoms that they can't get out of a chair, and they can take a medication, and now they can go for a little walk, and now they can do a little yoga, and now they can go over and turn the music on and learn how to do some other things. The answer is, we know that regeneration of nerves and function increases and improves with certain supplements, exercise, and all the rest of that. To answer this patient's question is, time will tell how well this will do. And I'd love to see prescription medicines put away, but there's a transition from one to the other in some cases. So transitioning over 6 months, sometimes trying less of the medication and maybe more of like the optimizer would be the way to do it. But there's no clear, it's all cloudy, because unfortunately medicine is not, it's not all sunshine. But to me, effort and trying is everything.
Yeah, for sure. I really, the difference between understanding what those medications are doing versus supplementation. You used the reference of hiders versus helpers before.
Right.
The medications that all they're doing is hiding
Right.
how it feels. It's just blocking those sensations, but not actually doing anything to get you on a path to being able to stop taking those medications, which they come with sometimes really disastrous side effects, especially when that prolonged, taking for a long extended period of time. So before signing up to take something like that for the rest of your life, it's really important to understand what it's doing, what it's not doing, and then what you can add in to actually make a change. So that was really, I think, just understanding that difference of what they're actually doing. So, all right, I know we're running close on time, Don, so I'm going to skip to a question there's a few that came through about ALA. So this one I'm going to pull from Carol. She's saying, I take Nerve Renew and also add in the additional ALA. So the optimizer is the name of that. How much is safe when it comes to ALA, and are there side effects?
Well, first of all, I'd say that the supplements are really safe, okay, to take. Are there side effects? People can have them. Of course, people can have side effects from anything. But I would say that for most cases, 90+% of folks tolerate the alpha lipoic acid, the Nervanew, those supplements very, very well. That's the first thing. Secondly, people absorb things differently. Sometimes if I take a certain one tablet, then that's enough. Two tablets for some people. Sometimes they need more. And I'm not going to go into all the micrograms. You talk about vitamin B12 uh, and absorbing 4,000 micrograms, and sometimes you can increase it to 6,000 to 8,000 micrograms of vitamin B12, which is really, really important, vitamin B12 deficiency. But I tell folks, look, it's important it's important to know if you have a vitamin B12 deficiency, because then you can at least measure it. But there's a mistake that people make that I want to address right now because it's really important. Some folks go to their doctor and they say, I want to check my vitamin B12 levels, and the blood is drawn. They come back with vitamin B12 levels, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But that's the wrong blood test.
Okay.
The correct blood test is MMA. It's called methylmalonic acid levels. That's the real measurement of vitamin B12. I'd say you don't always have to get the lab drawn initially if you're having symptoms, and I know that B12 helps regenerate the nerves and helps that environment around the nerves and helps the neurons work more effectively. But I wanted to address that because folks have come to my office previously and said, my vitamin B12, and then when they show the paper, it's not B12. You got to check the methylmalonic acid. Okay. And that's just an important point. And remember, some people are going to have a little nausea or some side effects from some of these. And so just go to a little bit of a lower dose and see how it works. Okay.
Yeah.
The important thing is consistency and time and keeping a record of, because sometimes people forget where they were in the beginning. Okay. So I think that the point here is they're safe, they're tolerated, they work for most people very, very well. But you need to have some information, and don't make that mistake about the vitamin B12 levels.
Yeah, I had no idea. That's so interesting. Good to know. All right, I know we are pretty much at our time limit, so you guys, we're going to have to cut it off for tonight. But like I said when we started, if you still have questions or if your question didn't get answered tonight, please drop it in that comment box or send our team a question directly. You can do it right here on Facebook. They're the ones that monitor those inboxes. And then also, if you want to email us instead, that's support@nerverenew.com. Or you can give them a phone call as well. The phone number's on the website and our page. They are here. It's a wonderful group of individuals that really, a lot of the people that end up as our customer service representatives have dealt with neuropathy themselves. They have firsthand experience. So they can really speak to these things as well. So we don't want your question to go unanswered. Please just send it in. We'll be sure to get it addressed in whatever form you send it in. But that is all the time that we can take from Dr. Kennedy this evening. As always, Dr. K, we want to thank you for giving us that time, lending us your expertise. We always learn a lot from you, and we hope that everyone listening tonight got to learn as well. Anything else before we wrap up tonight's call?
Well, it just, I think it's most important to understand the basics. Remember what I said at the very beginning, the basics, the basics, the basics, and don't get so entangled on all of the information that you don't do something, because people hunt and hunt and hunt and they hunt and they don't do something. The most important thing, and I've said this probably a billion times, listen, go do something different. Change one thing in your diet. Take that first step toward the mailbox that you think is too far away. Go to a yoga class. Turn music on and sit in a quiet room and practice neurofeedback. It's the beginning of a new journey. This whole process, and the idea, the whole reason we're doing this is educate you so you can just move on and have a great life and have fun. That's it.
Yeah. Second that. Absolutely. Well, thank you. We appreciate you as always. And just to wrap up, I know I mentioned this in the beginning. I was able to snag you guys an early access code. So we have a St. Patrick's Day special coming up this weekend. But for you guys listening live, you get free or early access to it. So it is a 25% off your total order, just a blanket code for that. So we will drop the link for that early access in the comments. So if you are a Nerve Renew customer and need to stock up or want to try something else that maybe was mentioned tonight, or if you haven't tried Nerve Renew before, this is a great opportunity to jump in. Please, if you do have a question about, hey, what should I get started with? That's what our team is for. Give us a call, shoot us an email, and then keep that code handy. So check out the comments for that. It is Lucky25. Also, happy early St. Patrick's Day. Thank you everyone who was able to join us this evening or catching the replay. We just appreciate you being here, and it's our pleasure to share this information, these resources, and we hope you walked away with some good stuff tonight. So, Don, thank you. We'll see you guys next time.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.